Today we've got a crazy story of revenge that indirectly caused a car accident. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, PE teacher kept making fun of me because I wasn't athletic and I made him vomit from exhaustion in front of the whole class. This was well over a decade ago, but I wanted to share. I was born with a congenital heart disease and had surgery as a kid. I am completely okay, but sports was obviously not my thing. I was small, skinny, and clumsy because I never really could do the typical outdoor stuff like most kids. Got teased and bullied and all that. Typical for a geeky kid who doesn't excel with a football. In high school, we had a mildly problematic PE teacher, a typical sports dude who would make fun of the slower kids. I still remember how he ordered my overweight friend to do a gymnastics jump from a trampoline over a stool, which he obviously couldn't do, and he fell so hard he cracked his head. I found peace with myself long before, and mostly didn't care and just took it. But it was stupid, and I hated how he always encouraged the jock culture of making fun of the nerds. We would constantly do basketball or soccer or football. Thing about my specific condition is I don't do explosive and reactive sports at all, so I would have to sit down every few minutes to catch my breath. You would think, what's wrong with that? But I was shamed about being the weakling of the class every week. I like sports though, a lot. I was just always told by my parents and doctors to take it easy. And growing up, I noticed I had no problem whatsoever with endurance and steady long-distance efforts. As long as I don't go into the red, I could keep it up for quite a while. So it's not a surprise I fell in love with road cycling when I first saw the Tour de France on TV. I was super skinny, couldn't sprint, but I could climb a long mountain any day, pacing myself and blowing nearly anyone off my wheel on endurance. I got myself a road bike and never told anyone at school about my rides. Here comes the revenge. We had a class sports day, and there was a bus arranged to take us to the top of a mountain about an hour away where we were to go on a hike. Our PE teacher said that if anyone wants, he will cycle up there and we could join him on the climb instead of the hike. I was the only one to volunteer. He was surprised and commented something to the effect of keeping up and not gonna wait for you, but I insisted. He couldn't know that I was more than capable to climb that mountain because he only saw me struggling with sports with him. He also couldn't know that that was my home hill, literally starting a kilometer from my house. I did that climb 100+ times and knew it blind. Knew my pacing, and while I was no Tadek Bagachar, I knew I could probably drop my PE teacher at will there. For cyclists out there, the climb is 12.5 kilometers, 6.9% gradient, super regular. For non-cyclists, a perfect climb for a lightweight rider with good pacing and stamina. So the day arrives and I did my warm-up, nutrition, and everything as if it was a life or death mountaintop time trial, and rock up at my school in my full racing kit and my racing bike. I was 17, weighed 55 kilograms, and totally prepared. He was a typical middle-aged, overconfident ex-soccer player, probably weighing 90 kilograms on a standard mountain bike. Super perfect situation. He sets a relatively hard pace on the 10 kilometers flat before the climb, and I don't speak or take the front. I take my good time to get back on his wheel after intersections, and he probably thinks he'll drop me the second we start going uphill. Then the climb starts, and it becomes very apparent to me, but not to him, that he is near his limit, but that it's at least 5 kilometers an hour slower than what I could do on that mountain. But I don't attack him, that would not be satisfying. Instead, I start bantering how someone's getting dropped today and it would be embarrassing if the whole class sees how I beat him. And then I take over the pace and slowly start turning the screws on him. I went only a little faster, then a bit more. I knew after about 3 kilometers he was in the red, so I ease off, keeping him just slightly over his limit for the next half an hour. I wanted to make him suffer, but without dropping him. I let him recover for a tiny bit if he starts looking too bad, but then I would slowly push the tempo up to make it as painful to him as possible. It was Tour de France level mind games. I don't think I've ever enjoyed myself on my bike more. We made it near the top together and I let it rip on the last 300 meters or so, and it was that typical humiliation attack every amateur group ride cyclist knows. He dropped like a stone. I got my revenge and was very happy with myself. He said something about his heavy bike and I kept my mouth shut. but it got better. On the top, he was clearly dead, so much so he had to vomit in the parking lot, and even if only a few classmates saw it, everyone knew. He had to sit out the hike after, and I just quietly sat there with him because I didn't need to do the hike like he promised, and just looked at him, enjoying the sweet revenge. I didn't say anything after that, nor did he. He never made any comments to me in PE class again. Lesson: don't bully your students, they might surprise you. Yeah, we'll get back to the whole made the overweight kid jump off of the trampoline thing. I've got some comments that are going to go into that, but basically, what I wanted to say is, I feel like what OP did here is kind of like the culmination of those intrusive thoughts you have as an elementary school kid, where you have that PE or gym teacher who is clearly old, out of shape, and you think to yourself, I wish they could try to do any of these athletic things they're trying to make us do. Even in middle school, high school, you had that old gym teacher that was like, come on, one more lap, keep on going, fitness gram pacer test. In my head, I was always thinking, man, I'd like to see them have to do this. Desk Outrageous 9248 commented, I'm sorry, I need to go back to the overweight kid that cracked his head. What? Is he okay? What happened to that guy? OP responded, went to the ER, got 2 stitches, life moved on. Standard stuff for 10 years ago in my Eastern European country. Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy crazy stories of revenge, it would be amazing if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to my podcast. That said, our next story is revenge against the couple who stole our spot on vacation. Wife and I were on vacation at a Caribbean resort. It wasn't very crowded. We picked out a couple of nice loungers and spent most of the week there with no issues. Another couple showed up a few days before we were scheduled to leave. Wife caught them looking at us a few times over a couple of days. Our last morning, they put their crap on our loungers before we got there and then didn't show up until noon. The spot was nice because it was in the shade when it got hot and it was close to the bar. We found another spot. Later, after they arrived and we saw who it was, my wife said that they stole our spot on purpose. Confirmed when my wife was in the water and saw them walk by me in our new, less awesome spot, they looked at me and started laughing. We were leaving the next day. We went down very early, spread fresh towels on the loungers, put fresh folded towels down, and left our leftover suntan lotion and our inflatable floats on the loungers. Hope they spent all day waiting to see who stole their spot. Is this not the epitome of 2 wrongs don't make a right? And also the fact that OP's like, it's our spot. Like as if them checking into that hotel and using that spot one time automatically provides them privilege to use it again. Jolly on Wag 99 commented, major emphasis on petty in this one. I hate all of you. Sparrows replied, I assumed they had literally stolen OP's spot by moving all the stuff to another lounger while OP was in the water or whatever. These people are all as bad as each other. Our next story is, taught my housemates a lesson after they kept blatantly disrespecting me and our shared space. Hi everyone, I live with 5 other girls, so there's 6 of us in the household. We've been living together for almost 2 months now. The first 2 weeks of living together, we took pride in being nice to each other and respecting our communal spaces. For example, the kitchen and living room. Everyone was doing their part in looking after the household and the vibes were good. Within the last month, things have taken a dip with 3 of our housemates. These 3 housemates got into the habit of inviting people around, drinking, and then leaving huge messes that wouldn't be cleaned. My other 2 housemates recently expressed frustration at the amount of times they've had to clean up the kitchen and living room after our other housemates would leave piles of bottles, wasted food, and other rubbish behind. We started leaving messages in our house group chat kindly reminding everyone to clean up after themselves. They responded and agreed, but then earlier tonight they threw another house party, and lo and behold, they left another huge mess behind. After seeing the living room and kitchen trashed once again, knowing me and my other 2 housemates spent hours cleaning just days ago, it's fair to say I snapped a little. I'd only gone downstairs to grab a drink, but when I walked into the living room and saw the bomb site of a mess in the kitchen and living room, I decided I was going to take matters into my own hands. I went into my room, grabbed a bin bag, went back downstairs, and put all of their rubbish in the bin alongside whatever remaining alcohol they decided to clean out. I then left the bag on the side for them to find in the morning. So now if they want the alcohol that they left strewn about for us to clean, they'll have to go rummaging through a bin bag of their own mess to retrieve it. Was it petty? Sure. I'll admit that willingly, and surprisingly I'm not the petty type. But this has gone on for weeks and I finally had enough. I like to think me and my other two housemates did everything to handle the situation reasonably up until this point, but I'm hoping this helps them to realize the importance of respecting shared spaces. So, granted, I do think these people are going to probably be upset. I mean, let's be real, they were kind of boozers and partiers, so OP dumping all of their alcohol into all of the other trash, I imagine those party lovers are going to be fussy about that. But does anybody else think they didn't go far enough? Like OP should have taken this a step further? I just feel like what OP did here is going to have some impact, but in reality not enough for them to truly change their ways. Like OP didn't actually leave anything for them to physically learn their lesson. Funkest Fistula commented, "You got even by cleaning up their mess? You should have put all the trash in their bedrooms." I had 5 roommates and one always cooked big meals and left all the dishes. I told him if he did it one more time, he won't be happy. He came back from work with every pot, pan, dish, utensil, sticky food fixins in his bed. He never did it again. Our next story is, I came back in a 3-piece suit. When I was in college, I worked for a large video rental company in the US Northeast as an assistant manager of a store that staffed 7 people. It wasn't a crazy busy place, and this was the dying days of video rental, so circa 2011 to 12 or so. I worked there 40 hours a week, so I was very familiar with all of the regulars that would come in and out. Anyway, the company had a no jeans dress code policy. There was no uniform, just requirements being a collared shirt and not jeans. In practice, employees wore jeans with a polo or button down all the time with no issue. One day, I went to work at a 4 p.m. to midnight shift at the store, after having been in class and on campus from like 9:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. I wore jeans and a button-down to school that day so I could go right to work after class. I got there and punched in and was surprised by the fact that our district manager was visiting our store that day, and he decided he needed to make an issue over my jeans. He pulled me aside as I was working, about 30 to 45 minutes into my shift, and reprimanded me about violating the no jeans policy. I told him I was sorry. People wear jeans here all the time. I was in school all day. He insisted that I go home and change my pants if I wanted to complete my shift. And as I was the only person scheduled to be working from 6 p.m. to midnight, basically so the store could still operate and I could get paid. I told him, "You realize that my house is at least a 15-minute drive away. That means I'll be gone for a minimum of 45 to 60 minutes for me to drive home, all while he would be the only person working at the store?" He insisted no jeans. So I drove home, and I was so angry about this tiny bullcrap and power play this guy was making on me that I got to my apartment and decided to change into the absolute fanciest thing I owned at the time. A 3-piece blue suit with a starched white shirt and striped yellow tie. The shirt was even French cuffed, so I wore the fancy cufflinks I'd gotten from my grandfather's funeral. I put on my nicest cologne, biggest watch, clickiest shoes, and walked right back into that family video looking like I was about to get married. My boss saw me immediately, and I don't know if he stifled a laugh or rolled his eyes, but he didn't say a single word to me for the next 2 hours that he was there watching me do my job, outside of "thank you." I had regulars asking me, "Why are you so dressed up today?" or "Wow, you look nice today." And all I said back to them was, "Well, I take this job very seriously. And if you want to rent movies in a respectful way, you've got to look the part." I don't know if he hated me or respected me for it, but we literally never spoke again until he got transferred to a different district a few months later. Anybody in the comments have any idea what you would think if you walked into a store and you saw somebody in a 3-piece suit, French collar, cufflinks on? If I saw that, I would think, oh, that must be like the owner or like the son of the owner, and they're having like a staffing emergency and they had to be here. I mean, what other reason could there possibly be for somebody being there in a family video store in a blue 3-piece suit? Music 420 Dude commented, working at a similar video rental establishment, and we had a holier-than-thou district manager who would creepily watch us from across the parking lot with binoculars regularly. Every time we caught him in his churchy 15-passenger creeper van, we got creative to mess with him, and then some. He got mad that we were playing Men in Black 2 in the store. We had 300 copies, so we pushed it, duh, because it said god dang bugs in the first 5 minutes. Me being petty, I asked loudly, does anyone have a god dang problem with this god dang movie being on in store? Parents, is this god dang movie bothering you or your kids? One parent said, the only god dang problem I have here is there's no god dang copies to rent now. Our next story is entitled Rich Lady. I walked into a hotel lobby once to see an older lady lecturing the front desk clerk because her premier parking spot was taken. She explained how it had been promised to her and her car group that they could have the prime parking spots because their car show was important in that town. Front desk kid did his best to calm her, but couldn't do anything about the open, non-reserved spaces not being available. Angry lady turned to me with the expectation that I would agree with her that she should have her precious parking spots. She said it needed to be fixed as she turned to me for support. I responded with, seems to me like you're feeling pretty entitled. She stormed out of the office, and the kid was able to move on with his job. You know what the nonsense usually is about a situation like this though? Somebody will be working there and clearly they're just a kid trying to do their job, and obviously there's nothing that they can immediately do about some promise that was made that these wide open, non-reserved, non-special spaces were going to be somehow reserved. But then the entitled person's complaining will bring the manager in, and all of a sudden the kid is getting reprimanded and the manager capitulates and gives that entitled person exactly what they were hoping for. I'm sorry for the frustration, entitled ma'am. Here, let me give you exactly what you're complaining about and feeling you're entitled to, and kiss your butt to make it all better. Kinda drunk right now, commented, I was at a Wendy's and this older woman was yelling at the girl behind the counter because her chicken nuggets were too spicy. She turned to me and said, can you believe this? And all I said was, I bet you wonder why your kids don't bring your grandchildren around. She stormed out. Our next story is, I called a bad driver's company. I was driving down the motorway with my family. I was a passenger, and the car beside us swerved suddenly. My mother also had to swerve to avoid a collision and accidentally cut across the guy in the van behind us. The guy behind us then veers out into the lane beside us, speeds up so he's level with our window, one hand on the wheel and the other making obscene gestures as he's clearly shouting. He isn't paying attention to the road at all. My mother flips him off in return and tries to slow so he goes ahead, but then he slows his van so he can continue gesturing and shouting. After swerving all over the lane, he finally speeds off ahead. The thing is, this van was a company van. It had the name and logo on the side, so I took a photo of his license plate and called the company. I told the woman who answered the phone, I just want to inform you that I'm driving down motorway and the man driving one of your company vans with the registration number here is driving extremely aggressively and dangerously. She thanked me for informing her, made a note of the license plate, and told me that the incident would be investigated. Hope he enjoys his disciplinary. Edit LMAO at the people who were accusing me of being a Karen. I want to reiterate that the one reason my mother cut the guy in the van off was because a different car swerved suddenly from their lane into ours and would have hit us if she hadn't swerved as well to avoid them. She also only flipped the van driver off because he was already being aggressive. The reason I called was primarily because it was raining heavily and his reckless and aggressive driving could have caused a serious accident. The road was slippery and there was bad visibility. If someone had come up behind him when he suddenly hit the brakes to come back level with us, they would have gone right into him and not been able to slow or stop in time. I've said it before, I don't mess with things on the road, I don't deal with the road rage. Life's too short, too many variables, too many multi-thousand-pound vehicles. If somebody wants to get irate at me and have their day ruined because they want to argue or whatever, so be it. I think I would just be prone to straight facing it, ignoring them, slow down to an uncomfortable speed, or just keep going. I think that would be more satisfying than giving a reaction. Icarus commented, I did the opposite once. I was driving on the interstate highway, maybe a quarter mile behind a cement mixer truck. Light traffic, late morning sunshine, so good visibility. I'd been slowly gaining on it for the preceding few miles when I saw it suddenly slam on the brakes, complete with smoke coming off the tires. When I got closer, I saw a small car driving in reverse towards an exit that I'm guessing they had missed. The cement mixer would have crushed that car. I finally caught up to the mixer and got the company name and how's my driving phone number. The driver of the mixer was a young male, maybe 19 to 22 years old. When I got to my destination, I called the number. I said, "Be nice to driver of truck number XYZ. He has had a rough morning." Some idiot was driving in reverse on the freeway and he didn't turn that car into confetti. I got the impression that the lady that answered my call had never received a complaint on that phone line. Our next story is horror movie level revenge on cheating ex. I've been sitting on this for over a year and I'm finally ready to share it. At the start of 2024, my ex cheated on me and blamed me and blocked me when I confronted her. That completely broke me and sent me into a deep depression for several months. Fast forward to Halloween 2024, I'm at a Halloween event with my friends and I went dressed as a skeleton. Full suit and a full-on latex mask around my whole head. Either way, I'm having fun when I notice my ex is there and she also happens to be dressed as a skeleton, just with a cat skull mask that can be pulled up and down. Sober me would just ignore her, but I was drunk and feeling vindictive. I thought about throwing a drink in her face or tripping her when she was on the dance floor. Then it hit me what I should do. I still had one photo of her I forgot to delete when we broke up, and it couldn't have been a better photo. I head over to my ex and tap her shoulder and don't say a word. I start acting silly and like a mime, just pointing out how we're both skeletons, and she smiles at me and makes a heart with her hands. I do it back and then gesture to dance with my hands. So my ex has no idea it's me and we're dancing together. She then takes off a beaded bracelet she had and puts it over my wrist. I act all happy about it and give her a hug. I then gesture that I have something for her and pull out my phone. I show my ex a photo she's never seen before. It's her fast asleep in bed that she never knew I took when I woke up before her once. Her jaw hits the floor and she lifts up her mask to get a better look at the photo. I then start to walk away from her when she jumps on my back and screams, "Hey, who the freak are you?" I then shake her off of me and book it out of the event at top speed and then dart down a few blocks and hide in an alley for a few minutes. When I realized I was in the clear, I just laughed my head off in hysterics. The next day, my buddy who still follows my ex on Insta shared with me that she posted a story saying, "If anyone knows someone who went to the event in a full skeleton costume, please contact me. I had a very creepy encounter last night and would like this person identified." This really just added to the joy of what I'd done because she had no idea who did it to her and it will always haunt her forever. A year later, I still laugh about it and it brings me joy. Now, I'm not going to advocate for what OP did or try to rationalize it, but it is at least a little bit funny. And how many of you guys were also as worried as I was when OP said, "I still had one photo of her I forgot to delete when we broke up"? At that point, when I heard that, I thought this was going to go downhill fast and reach illegal territory. Thankfully, in this situation, it just seems illegal to her. Yeah, again, I cannot advocate for this. Severe Confusion 3813 commented, "Now this year, put the bracelet on her car windshield wiper or doorstep with the same photo. Wear gloves and wipe everything down first. No DNA." Our next story is the kitten I adopted out of spite. My then 15-year-old daughter and I visited the local humane society on a weekly basis. It was free therapy for her, as cuddling the kittens and watching them play was a great endorphin rush. We were in the kitten room when a little girl, maybe 6 or 7, entered with her father. I watched as she manhandled kittens, picking them up by their legs, hitting one in the head after it swiped at her, and listened to her whiny voice saying, "That one's ugly," or "Yuck, look at his eye, that's gross," about a kitten with an obviously healing eye injury. She eventually zeroed in on the only little orange and white kitten who was very chill despite her aggressive handling of it. She declared to her dad after a few moments that this was the one she wanted. Her dad asked if she was sure, and she said yes. She spent a few more minutes holding him up in the air, bouncing him around like a ball and just really being a little crap. I stood up and went to the wall where all of the cage cards were and quickly found the sheet for the only orange kitten in the room. I took it out of the slot and sat back down. After a few more minutes, I walked up to the little girl and nicely said, "Can I please have him? We are adopting him." She glared at me and said, "No, he's mine." Her dad walked over and I said, "We had visited him earlier. We even have his cage card. I'm sorry." He told his daughter to hand over the kitten and she lost her crap. She carried on and screamed like a spoiled brat for 5 minutes. While holding on to the terrified kitten who was trying to get away, she only wanted the orange one and didn't like any of the other ugly kittens. It took her dad yelling at her to get her to finally throw the kitten across the room and stomp away. My daughter went and picked up the kitten, and long story short, Otis has now been happily living his best life in my home for 7 years, and we love him so much. My Facebook memory reminded me that today is the anniversary of his gotcha day. I hope the little moron never got a kitten. Yeah, the only condition where I would be okay with that kid having a cat is if the dad was a responsible and well-caring adult for that cat. But considering the way their kid is acting, that clearly isn't going to happen. I guess the only hope for OP is to follow them around for the rest of their days and make sure they adopt all the other kittens this girl's gonna want to pick up. Darth Jojo commented, "We adopted a bunny once because he was too cute for his own safety. Husband volunteered regularly at the shelter, and Mr. Nibs was a cute little Netherland dwarf who was attracting people who really just wanted a stuffed animal. Last straw was when a family came in wanting to adopt him but failed their interview after mentioning that their previous bunny had died because they forgot to feed or water it. At that point, we decided he needed to come home and live the rest of his days with us. Ended up bonding with 2 of our other boy bunnies, and the 3 of them were besties for years. We spayed and neutered all of our bunnies, so we didn't have to be with other boys. That's just who we ended up vibing with." Our next story is Won't Move Your Car, Enjoy the Hour Wait, and a Car Accident. The other day, I, 25-year-old male, was delivering fuel to a gas station. This station was set up where the tank access lids are right by the parking spots. For me to be in a position to dump fuel, I need to block all of the parking spots in front of the building. There's usually a car or 2 in the way, and I can usually patiently wait until I'm clear to pull in. If it's a busy time of day, I put cones up as cars leave to prevent anyone else from pulling in until I've moved into position. But this time, a lady in a Tesla absolutely couldn't handle parking 50 feet away and had to move my cone to park right in front of the door. I hopped out my truck and went inside to ask her to move so I could deliver the gas, and she told me, "Get bent, you can wait until I'm done here." So I pulled my truck in behind her with about 2 inches to spare between my truck axles and her bumper. I set my brakes and began hooking up hoses to unload. Since I couldn't park in the ideal position, my large 3-inch hose was too short to reach the hole. So I used my 2-inch hose, which is longer but does limit flow rate by about 33%. No sooner than 5 seconds after I've opened my valve to start the fuel delivery, she comes out screaming that she's in a hurry and I need to move my truck before she calls the cops for harassment. I told her, "Get bent, you can wait until I'm done here." She asked me how long it would take. I informed her that normally it would be about 45 minutes, but because I had to use my smaller hose, I figured about an hour and 15 minutes. She stormed off and got in her car and called the cops. About 10 minutes later, 2 officers arrive and ask what the problem is. She wants me arrested for harassment. Gas station employees side with me, saying that the woman was rude and belligerent and I'm just here to do my job. The cops tell her that she's just going to have to wait, and they leave. I took my sweet time unloading and doing my paperwork. All total, she waited an hour and a half before I moved my truck when I left. As I was waiting to pull out of the parking lot, she zoomed around me and pulled into the street directly into the path of oncoming traffic. She was T-boned by a lifted pickup with a heavy-duty cattle guard bumper. Her Tesla was totaled. The pickup was completely unscathed. She wasn't injured, but I almost had an asthma attack from laughing so hard. Considering the fact that OP added that they knew that this woman was uninjured, it must have been the perfect situation where you see her start up and speed off all frustrated, immediately goes and gets T-boned, and then she pops right out of the cab squawking and squabbling like a chicken all ruffled up. "Oh, do you not see where you're going? I'm gonna get my lawyer. You're gonna be in so much trouble, blah, blah, blah." I mean, yeah, if I was OP and I saw that go down, I'd be sitting there in my cab losing my crap too. My throat would be gone from how much it tickled from laughing so much. Snoo Advice 6772 commented, "This is proof of my motto, stolen from Cormac McCarthy. You'll never know what worse luck your bad luck saved you from. It helps me be cool and level when things don't go my way. Her bad luck could have been walking across the parking lot instead of parking out front. The worst luck she could have never even known was a possibility was waiting an hour and a half and totaling her car. It's so simple." But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy revenge story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.